Welcome to the Backpage Podcast presented by the Niagara Wire. I'm with my co-host Jamie McGowan, our fantastic producers Franklin Heinzman and Ryan Sullivan. I'm James Burns. Thanks for tuning in. Today we're talking the beginning of NU Spring Sports, NHL trade deadline, special guest coming Friday, including an interview with Niagara Wire alum and current editor of the Niagara Wheatfield Tribune, David Yarger. But first, we got to look at the Niagara-Canisius rivalry in review. I hate to be that guy, but I called what happened this past weekend in hockey about 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Surprise, surprise, they lost.
Not that we weren't all thinking it anyway.
We were all thinking it. They actually had a good showing at Harbor Center Friday, but
I was going to say they played them. Sorry to cut you off, but they played them close. It was 2-1 and 3-2.
It was like they were in it the entire time. And the thing is,
yeah,
I watched a little bit of it live online. I found it online streaming. It was competitive all the way through. It's not like they were out of it at any point, really. It's just the thing we've had an issue all year. Beginning of the year, we could score. We had good defense. Goaltending was positive. We just gave up chances this time. It's literally just a fact of chances.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you have to look forward to next year. I really don't think there's a lot of optimism going to the postseason for them, but they are someone who, Coach Lammers is someone to keep an eye on. Right, like coach, he's a good coach, and
yeah, in terms of team building, I think.
In terms of team building, he's fine. What I think the biggest concern for them, though, is kind of how do you bounce back from this? And you have a whole off season to do it, and you have plenty of time to recruit, and you brought in 11 new players this year, and you're going to probably bring in just as many, probably less next year, but still, you're still building the program, and even if you don't play a complete season. I don't know. Maybe guys. We don't know what happened. We're not in the locker room. We're not at every game. So it's really something that you got to look forward to next season, I think, in this case, which isn't the worst thing.
No.
We're used to it in Western New York.
If you think of it, too, is like all the coaches they brought in, besides Lammers, they're all players' coaches. And if you have a locker room of guys creating chemistry, creating a family of sorts.
Who are happy.
If they're happy athletes, yeah, it sucks to be losing. But the thing is, you still have that bonding through losing. It makes you angry. I heard a quote from Andrew McCutcheon this week about how angry the Giants are in relation. You see a team who's built on just chemistry and locker room. That's a big thing to have for teams. And the fact that we have outreach to Minnesota, Wisconsin, and all throughout Canada, because each of our coaches have come from those various areas, it's huge for recruiting because we have such an outreach and people see how good of a team we are with 2 guys in the top 30 voting for Hobie Baker, one being a sophomore, let alone.
So as of right now, the Purple Eagles are the 9th seed in the AHA tournament, and they're slated to take on the AIC Yellow Jackets. And back in November, they split a doubleheader. Can you guys see the first round being a success for the Purple Eagles?
You know what? I'll give them 3 games.
That's all they got.
I'll give them 3. I don't think they'll be swept. I think they'll have time to prepare for the postseason. They have tape on these guys. They split with them before, so it's not crazy to think they'll split the first 2 games again. I don't think they're going to be able to compete for a 3-game series, but I'll give them 3 games against that team. That's about the most optimistic I can be, and I really think that's the most optimistic anybody can be. On the other side of that, basketball, another tough week against Canisius. Another tough week, 0-2, nearly identical games. I was at both games, and I'll say this about both games. It was identical to each one. I think I said this on Friday. Maybe it was, I can't remember.
Maybe you said it on Friday.
It was on Friday, but both games are identical in which that the women played them close through 3 quarters. The men played them close to the half and for the beginning part of the second half, and then Canisius pulled away in both games.
Defense just fell through like it has for numerous times for various losses.
And I think it's because the women have a short bench. They got to have one of the shortest benches in the nation. They have 5 people on that bench, which is not a lot for basketball. A few of which play 3 to 5 minutes a game. So you're asking a lot of people on the bench. You're asking a lot of Victoria Rampato, she's human. She's going to get tired. And the stat sheet doesn't say she's human, but she's human. And then Matt Scott being out for the Canisius game, I think it was a similar effect. You're asking more of guys, maybe an extra 2 or 3 minutes more than you've been playing all season is maybe you kind of make a few mental errors with 5 minutes left, miss a few shots. Mental errors on defense, you saw it, and you saw missed shots. So I think the question going forward is, how can Niagara women compensate for a short bench? And, well, most importantly for the men, is Matt Scott going to be in for that first-round game this Thursday? Because Niagara they've had a good season. It's their first good season in a while, but with that good season comes expectation.
I think they're both good points. Like, Matt is obviously a big question mark. I don't think we'll know until the day of. But I think in terms of women, with Victoria being a senior and leaving, that bench being short, 2 or 3 of those women on the bench out of that 5 you're talking about actually fill her spot. So it's like they have depth behind her, but are they really where we want to have them, placing the all-time scorer and replacing her? It's a very tough situation. But like, at least there is that depth there for her spot. But for going to playoffs, it's like, what do? They're not going to fill in for her, so who else are they going to really fill in for?
Well, that's a question for next season, too. I mean, they're losing 3 great seniors.
There.
So that's a wider question past just Rampado.
They're coming into the tournament. They're going to be the 6th seed, the women are. And so that means if they do make a run to the championship, probably on the back of Rampado, they wouldn't have to face the 1 seed until the championship. So there's some silver lining to where they ended up. As far as the men go, 3 seed. First game is March 3rd. They have a bye.
So it's Saturday, not.
It's on March 3rd.
Okay, so that's the Saturday. I said Thursday.
If they and Canisius both win, that will be a semifinals matchup on ESPNU.
That'd be great.
I can't imagine that not being the biggest game of the NU sports just season. Everyone.
Past 5 years, probably. 10 years. I mean,
Yeah.
Right? Like,
It's got to be since they made the tournament.
I do have some stats. This men's basketball team, they had 19 wins, 12 in-conference wins, and 9 home wins. All are the most in the past 5 seasons.
That's incredible.
So that's great. I think Coach Casey is a lot to credit to that. I think he did a great job recruiting over the past few years and building a program.
And as far as Matt Scott, I believe he will be ready for the tournament because I thought I had heard there was a potential for him to play against Canisius, but they just didn't get some medical stuff cleared in time. They rested him on senior night, right, I believe?
Yeah.
So just to get him ready for the tournament, so that was smart. I believe he'll be ready.
And going into the women as well, the last point I'll make about them is going into the postseason. I mean, you could say they're an average team. They're a 500 team. They went about 500 in the conference play. They just beat Marist. Marist won 14-4 in the conference. They just beat. They closed out the season on Marist. So there's 2 ways you can look at the women's season. You can look at them as 3-1 in their last 4, beating Marist, and just getting pulled away from at Canisius in a game where they might have just got tired. Which this extended rest will, you're one game away from ending the season on a 4-game winning streak, and we always say it's the team that gets hot at the right time, right?
That's
so
true.
It's always the team that gets hot at the right time. So you're looking at it like that, or you can look at it over the past 10 games, in which they're 4-6. They went on a losing streak and they kind of cleaned it up in the last 4. So it all depends if they can keep that momentum going, or are they going to fall victim to the things that put them on a 6-game losing streak.
Yeah, if you look at, I mostly follow the men's basketball tournaments in general for the NCAA. If you look at teams that go on runs in their conference tournaments, usually they ended the season on high notes, and they carry that momentum through the tournament.
I think the shortened bench is going to plague them. I think if they had 2 or 3 more people to rely on, then but that's all hypothetical. I guess we got to analyze what's there.
All right, on a much more positive note, baseball, women's lacrosse, and softball all won this weekend.
They did. Well,
baseball is, they did win, but then they lost the next 2 the next day.
They were close.
So they're 1-2. They were close games. They won the first game 15-2, but looking at the box score, it was tight early. They were down 2-1 until the 6th, and then they scored 5 runs, then exploded to get to a 15-2 victory. And then the next 2 games, they lost 8-7 and 5-4. So really, the next 2 games were up for grabs.
I think the most impressive performance is the Niagara women's lacrosse team. Or we can just say lacrosse because there's no men's team to compare them to. They've been great. They got Caroline Crumpton. I should have checked the MAC standings. If we can get that up, that'd be great. Caroline Crumpton scored 7 goals against Duquesne.
That's insane.
And I think she might be leading the MAC right now. off of that one game.
Yeah.
I think it said Caroline Crumpton's 7 goal on purpleeagles.com.
I'm just checking the numbers now on purpleeagles.com.
Thank you,
That's a
Franklin.
career high, and Niagara's 17 goals and 25 points are the most in the MAC this season. So
And
they're sailing.
and they Canisius has a stronghold on the conference right now. They've won the last 3 or 4 years. They won the tournament the last 3 or 4 years. So I don't know how much you can really expect from this team come end of the season, but they are a squad that functions well, and they've been together for a while. Alexis Morales and Rachel McShane are both juniors. Grace Hunt's a senior. Caroline Crumpton's a senior, or redshirt senior or something. So, I mean, you have people there who have played together for a long time. There's a strong core to go on. And I think that they're deep. I think they'll be good for a long time. But this is definitely a team to be excited about if you're a Niagara sports fan. We'll probably cover them a lot this season.
Going back to the baseball team real quick, just a takeaway from their opening weekend is that Greg Cullen, the junior, is going to be a force to be reckoned with this season. Just through that opening weekend, he's hitting .600. He had 9 hits, 2 home runs, 6 RBIs, 17 total bases.
Wow.
And if I'm correct, I believe it was on 15 at-bats. So
Yep,
people usually look
yeah.
at 600 average at
Yeah.
the beginning of the season and, it's a 600. But
9 hits and 15 at
He's
bats.
at 15 at-bats. That's
A triple, 2 home runs, 5
That's
runs.
hot.
yeah, that's something. I mean, it's not, So,
And he was named a preseason All-MAC. So
and I really don't know what to think of baseball. I'm optimistic about softball, even though they're 3-6. I still think they're going to have a strong season.
they've given up a fair amount of runs their past weekend.
Yeah, and I'm optimistic about lacrosse. Baseball, I'm stuck on. I don't know how to feel about them.
Could be the case of the same thing with basketball, where we can rack up the points, but we give up the points too.
Yeah, it could be a case of that. So it all depends on how pitching is. Hopefully for them, they'll be able to get the bats going consistently, and I think that's really something that's going to be pertinent for them going forward.
Something to look at with their pitching is when for baseball is when I got in contact with Coach McCoy and he gave me some key players on the mound for them. 3 of the guys he named are sophomores, so they are riding on some young guys. And as far as softball being 3-6, they took 4 losses this past weekend, but they were playing 5 games within the span of February 23rd to 25th, and that's pretty taxing on a pitching staff.
And they're traveling on top of that.
Right, it was in Phoenix, Arizona.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's a hike.
So, you got to take that with a grain of salt.
I'm optimistic. I think they're going to have a great season.
Be sure to pick up issue 11 of the Niagara Wire on newsstands around campus today. And look out for issue 12 of the Niagara Wire, which comes out March 14th. I'm optimistic for today's NHL trade deadline for every team involved. I'm just a big fan of watching players get moved left, right, and center.
It's entertaining.
So let's talk. What do you guys think is going to happen? What has happened?
I had the privilege. Well, who's going first?
You can go first.
Okay. I had the privilege of seeing the Buffalo Sabres beat down on the Bruins last night. And I saw Rick Nash. Which was
Rick
cool.
Nasty.
Rick Nash. And he didn't play a lot. But the fact that he got traded in the morning and was playing at 5 o'clock in the evening, I mean that's he's one of the best active players right now. He's
Speaking of newly acquired Boston Bruins, I want to tell you guys just a quick anecdote.
this is great.
So I'm at work, right, and I'm at the counter.
Where do you work?
I work at Epic Sports Center
Okay.
on Worley
A sports
in
complex
Clarence,
okay.
in Clarence, New York.
All right.
So I'm at the desk, right, and I'm scrolling through Twitter. I'm just checking, what's going on, and I see Brian Giannis signs for the rest of the deal with the Bruins, and I'm like, oh, that's good.
On the phone at work.
Right, yeah.
On the phone at work.
Oh, yeah. It's actually kind of encouraged. But anyway. So I'm like, oh, Brian Giannis, that's good. Good to see he got a gig for the rest of the season. I put my phone down, write something down for one of my coworkers. I look up, and up walks the man himself, Brian Giannis. I was stunned. I guess one of his kids plays youth soccer at the Epic Center. And so it was like, what? I just read about you, like, not even 2 minutes ago. It was crazy.
The irony.
Maybe the most ironic.
What'd you say to him? Did you,
I
did
shook
you
his
say
hand.
anything to him? Or
Yeah,
Okay.
I made change for him. I shook his hand and I was just like, yeah, no, thanks for your time at the Sabres. Congrats on the new deal, and geeking out a little bit, of course.
And I like looking at it as a business side. Obviously, if you're a Sabres fan, you hate the Bruins.
Oh,
No, and you don't want to see I mean, he wasn't great here, but he wasn't. He's a local guy. People were excited that he was here. But you really got to. I mean, I guess you got to fish where the fish are. You got to go where the jobs are. And I know he was sick of playing in the. Was he in the AHL this year?
Yeah, he was
that
trained. It wasn't really
Rochester.
like.
Yeah, he played a game for the Rochester Americans.
Yeah, so I mean, it's you want to at that level. He's going to a team that could win, and maybe for that reason, I won't be that upset if Boston wins. I usually don't like Boston, but I mean, I won't be that upset if they win.
He's been a captain throughout his career.
He's been a captain throughout his career. He's a great leader. He's a great. I mean, there's not a lot of bad things you can say about him. He's one of those players, and I feel like if you know him, he's one of those guys who never have anything bad said about him, never have anything negative following them. Family guy.
Right, exactly.
At his
And,
kids'
yeah,
soccer games,
exactly.
stuff like that. So good for him. And if he ever comes across this, Brian Johnson, good luck in Boston.
I just want to talk about Evander Kane. So do you think he'll get traded today?
I think it has to. You see him having one foot out of the door. He is an ego guy. He is a character. He wants the spotlight. He begs the spotlight. He is not going to have a spot on our roster next year. We're definitely going younger, I feel like. We're building defense. So we're going to go and get rid of those forwards just due to our depth, too.
And by we, you mean the Sabres,
I mean,
correct?
the Sabres, correct.
So in your opinion, you've been following it a lot. You have charts written out, and Ryan's gonna be a great journalist one day if he keeps researching like this. But so what, in your opinion, from what you've seen, from what you've heard, logistically speaking, where are the top three most likely trade destinations for Evander Kane?
For Evander Kane, there's you figure he's a guy, left wing. He is one of those weird guys that never approaches the center of the ice. He literally sticks to his position always. He never shoots down the middle. He always either comes behind the net or takes a wide shot. Teams know what they're gaining him. He's not, you know exactly what you're gaining. You're gaining a guy with grit, speed, and can score when he wants to.
So
he needs
contender?
those pieces.
So contender?
Contender.
So, do you have any
you
specific
think-
contenders
what's
in mind?
specific? Yeah, what
Philadelphia, that's the big one right now.
for who? Like someone like Gothisbeer?
You see someone you look at the Rick Nash trade.
Yeah.
He was the big guy in the market. He got 5 pieces. Not only 5 pieces, that just, you're like, that's a lot.
The Rangers
But
got 5 pieces.
Yeah, the Rangers
Okay.
got a lot for the Rick Nash. They got a good prospect. They got Ryan Spooner, who is a 4th liner center on Boston, but most teams he's a 2nd or a 3rd.
They're just that deep. They're just that good.
They're that deep. And then you see they got 2 or 3 picks out of it as well. It's insane.
So someone like a Kane.
You see a Kane who is on a cheaper deal than Rick Nash, who
Younger.
has youth.
You mentioned this to me. You said Kane and Pouliot, who
Yeah.
some people would like to see go. He's 9 years in the league, and
He's
or
been
whatever
scoring
it
a
is.
lot too. That's the thing people don't realize is
Yeah,
he
so
was a
stock-
short pickup. We paid him very little money, and he's produced.
So people like. I mean, so you could package him, you could package
Could.
Kane, you'd send him to the Flyers, and
Yeah.
with those 2 players, it's not out of the question to get 5 or 6 pieces back in the form of early draft picks over the course of the next 2 years.
Yeah,
Yes.
even from the Flyers or anyone, an A+ prospect and a 1st-round pick is not out of the equation anymore. It was kind of that'd be pretty sweet if we do. But then, as Ryan said, as this Rick Nash trade came down the line,
You think too, they got 5 pieces for Rick Nash. The Sabres, if they wanted to, they could get ideally 5 pieces. They might be smaller pieces, but they could get, like you said, 2 larger pieces. That some teams are willing. They don't want to kill their depth, and so they want to go and make that one deal. The Flyers, they've been a good scoring team. They also need defense, so I'd argue the Sabres would give them a Antipin, a Georges, someone
With
even
Kane.
a Boilo. You go and send them with a Kane. In return, the Sabres get a Travis Sanheim, for example, or Shane Gauchebert,
That'd be big too. He's having a bad season, so his stock's low, but I think he's going to bounce back.
You think Michael Raffle, if we were going forward, like if the Sabres going for forward depth, like they have enough. But the thing is with the Sabres too, it's like they have enough scoring prospects. So it's like, do you
build up that D? Build up that D with Gostisbehere and
Right, and regardless, I want if I were the GM, I'd want a first-round pick.
Brandon Manning.
Oh yes, I think that's completely. I think that's if you want to
like who like prospects are interchangeable, but like ultimately it's a first-round pick or even more than just a first-round pick in terms of draft picks.
Yeah.
So you see, I could say Kane will go to Flyers. Other places, San Jose has been one of those teams. They're always on the dot.
Can you see him going somewhere? I don't know. I mean, we talk about stars like Carlson going to the Lightning.
Yes.
And we talk about stuff like that. But so could we see Vander Kane going to someone like the Lightning or the Golden Knights, looking for that extra piece or two to push them to the Stanley Cup?
The Knights could be one of those teams just because they have the expendable draft picks. Because they have a few firsts, they have a few seconds, and a few thirds. They stacked that up due to the whole fact of taking on huge salaries last year with Islanders and others. So the Knights could ideally do that. But otherwise, you look at teams down the board. The Jets would be the team, I'd say, but they're not going to take Kane back just because they know who he is.
Won't do that.
So they're already out the window. So I'd even consider, if you were thinking of a team who's contender, Anaheim's on the dot, but they've made already a few moves this season. So you think of teams that haven't. You think of Calgary. Calgary's one of those teams. You think of teams even like Columbus who would like extra scoring touch. So I'd say Columbus, Calgary, San Jose, Philadelphia. Those are the likely destinations for
Narrow that down to three.
Kane.
Narrow it down to your top three in
Top
order.
three?
We'll put you on the spot to end the segment.
My top three?
Top three.
Flyers. Under them, I say Flames. And under them, I'd say Blue Jackets, even though the Sharks have been the hottest rumor for teams right now.
It'd be good if the Blue Jackets could get him. I got extra kind of replace Johansson in that way.
Yeah.
Right?
You figure there's grit there, too, which, Yarmo likes for his teams.
So now that we've touched on what might happen, can you explain to us what the heck happened with the Derek Brassard trade? That was so confusing, scrolling through Twitter, trying to gather what happened.
As a journalist and a fan, either way, it was incredibly confusing due to the fact that the league did not let anyone know, nor did the teams, what was the issue. That was the thing behind it all, is normally they'll say, oh, there's a salary issue, there's a player issue, there's a physical that's not happening, there's a flight, there's something. They did not specify the issue until well after the trade happened. They let it go that night. So that night, the trade was released by the league. They saw who was going where. But it wasn't told what the issue was with the trade until roughly about midnight that night. What the issue was some salary and the fact that they're trying to take off more salary than the league allows. So that was like the biggest issue, was that the Knights were going to absorb more of Brassard's contract than what the league allows. And the Penguins were also having a salary cap issue, so they had, in turn, trade away more things. There had to be more salary like retention by both Senators and by Vegas. Vegas literally traded away. They got nothing. They got Ryan Reeves, and they took on
I was gonna say,
$1 million.
So what's the final verdict? What's the final? What has happened?
Analysis.
What's the
well, Penguins
recap of
Penguins
that?
stole Brassard.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
He's a third line center. You have
they
Riley
got-
Sheehan as your fourth line center.
They got Brassard. Then what was the other player movement?
Ian Cole
within
went
that?
to the Ottawa Senators, which was flipped today to the Columbus Blue Jackets.
Okay.
And then to the Vegas Knights, they went, and I think Ottawa also got a pick out of it.
Okay.
But Vegas, all they literally got was Ryan Reeves, and they retained.
And who they give up?
They gave up no one.
Oh.
Vegas gave up like a pick.
Oh.
They gave up a fourth round pick.
Have
But
to trade for Vander Kane. Yeah.
They absorbed $3 million, I think, or $2 million out of Brassard's contract. They don't even have the guy,
So they just had to eat money, and here we'll give you Ryan Reeves.
basically. And Ryan Reeves' character, grit, which is nice for McPhee. McPhee's like
grit
those
guy.
guys, but
And they got enough talent guys there too. I mean, they've been playing well enough. Probably wouldn't hurt to add one of those character guys. I don't know how many more wins you get with the character guy in your roster. I don't know how many more goals you score. I don't know how many more.
I think they're thinking
You know what I
playoffs
mean?
because you need those guys who can go and forge through it and tear down other teams through 7 games. You need that one guy in your fourth line to bug the heck out of people, and Ryan Reeves is that person. He did it in St. Louis, as we saw last year in playoffs. Ryan Reeves will kill guys, basically. He'll push them to the boards. He not only does that, but like mentally, he's one of the most mentally painstaking guys you see out there. Like how way back when, Yarger Ruutu was against the Sabres back in 2007.
All right. Yeah, that is quite the discussion on our hockey trade deadline.
And Ryan, what's going on for Friday?
For Friday, we may be having a special guest coming on. It is up in the air right now. But our special guest, should he be able to come on, would be not only one of the best hockey writers in the world right now in terms of blogs, and independently that's not connected to a association, but it's Eklund, who is the runner of HockeyBuzz.com.
Eklund. Is that
He goes in. He has
that a
based an
first name?
alias. It's not a first name, not a last name. It's an alias that he has. He doesn't let anyone know his real name unless you're like in with him. He goes and
Eklund.
he is friends with numerous scouts, GMs throughout the entire NHL. He talks to guys throughout Buffalo, Toronto, all over the world.
We're trying to get him for Friday.
We're trying to get him for Friday. He is a noble writer, great podcast guy, right out of Philadelphia. You know, he knows hockey better than most people do. Most people say he's not credible to the fact of him covering rumors so heavily. But you see, if anything, Bob McKenzie even covers rumors. That's where he is made off of.
So watch out for our announcement if we do end up getting him on our Twitter handle
There'll
at
be an
Backpage Podcast at @wire_sports.
And that is quite the storyline to follow if you're following the NHL trade deadline. We will have a special guest, Eklund, here Friday, hopefully. If we do, you'll see an announcement on our Twitter and other social media pages for the Niagara Wire. You're listening to the Backpage Podcast. If you haven't already, subscribe to us on YouTube and SoundCloud. We'd now like to welcome on Niagara Wire alum and current Niagara Wheatfield Tribune editor, David Yarger. David, thank you. David, what did I say? Thank you?
Come on.
We're rolling with that. So, David, let me
We're
ask you
rolling
the
with
first
that,
question.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, no problem.
Can you give the listeners a look into what your job is like and how stuff from the Niagara Wire newsroom translates into the real world?
Well, being part of the Wire, I remember your mission is to go out and get a story that is really hard-hitting and really gets out to a ton of, readers out on school campus. So at the Tribune, I'm all over the place. I'm covering town of Niagara, town of Wheatfield, and the city of North Tonawanda. And with covering those three cities, and towns, I have to go out and find the best stuff possible. So that means covering board meetings, which, aren't the greatest, but
It's not the sexiest, so.
Yeah, you get to hear some interesting stuff though, like when events are coming and stuff like
I was
that.
gonna say it's got to be pertinent information if you're broadcasting it. I mean, it is a board meeting, but there's got to be an audience for it, otherwise you wouldn't be there.
Right. And like certain things, like there's like the Summit Park Mall in the town of Wheatfield. It's been vacant for a long time.
What are
A
they?
long
They're building
time.
something
And,
there right now.
They're proposing a brewery, which is actually
think I
already in the
heard that.
works. And there's supposedly a sports building, sports domes going in the back, but
sports complex.
yeah, sports.
type of-
Yeah, it's but there's a lot of back and forth going there, so no one really knows what's gonna happen. Or
When in
what's gonna
doubt, go to Beer and Sports for Buffalo.
Exactly. They're hoping that it all.
There's a market for it. When we talk about market, there's an audience for
Yeah.
it. People
Oh,
love
yeah.
beer, people love sports.
Oh, yeah.
and
It's Western New York, so.
So how would you say? And just so I know too, just for my own thing, how similar would you say a college-run newspaper like The Wire is to something like a professional functioning newspaper such as yours? What similarities are there, and how are students getting better by enriching themselves now?
From my experiences with The Wire and the Tribune, there are a few differences. Like at The Wire, usually you have one person doing one thing, where, if you have someone on graphics or someone's just a full-time, writer, where me at the Tribune, I've had to do work with InDesign to, help put the paper together and do corrections and stuff like that. I also have to write and edit my own stuff. And also, you guys focus more on just stories, where I also have to receive press releases via email. And there's some old timers that still mail press releases, but that's
Nice.
besides
You
the
need
point.
them. You need them, though.
Yeah.
You know, they give character to society.
Yeah, but anyways, I have to look at those, edit them to AP style. Stuff you guys got to do as editors too. So it has its similarities, but it's also different in a sense.
I'm sure it has a different atmosphere to it, and it's got more of a sense of urgency and
Plus,
stuff like that.
Plus, we work on the paper, my paper at least, on Wednesdays to get out to readers on Thursdays. So it is a little different too because it is weekly. So a lot of papers are daily. I know you guys are like every 3 weeks or so.
Every
2
other.
weeks or so.
Every yeah.
It depends on breaks.
Yeah, so there is obviously a lot of differences.
So how was the transition from undergrad life into the scary real world as I think a lot of people perceive working full time? What were some of the challenges? What have you enjoyed?
It's kind of like college where you got to manage your time and you have certain responsibilities at certain times. So for me, it was really just trying to get acclimated to the lifestyle where, I have to go in at this time. I have to do this by then. And, it was just, I think the biggest part was having a lot of people looking up towards me, like in our towns, just because, if I don't get the right content out to them, then I'm going to hear backlash, which I'm just still, getting adjusted to it and everything, but I'm just trying to, the big thing is still just managing your time and just taking control of your responsibilities.
So what advice would you have for journalists out there looking to go into sports journalism or even just journalism in general?
That's a good question. I would say if you can, freelance as much as you can, go to as many events as you can, just get your name out there as much as possible. Live tweet games, just do whatever you possibly can to get your name out in the limelight. And the more people that see you, the better. I know that's how I really got my start. Was I interned at NFP, where I'm at right now, and I live tweeted games, and that led to me getting freelance opportunities with the Gazette, Buffalo News as well, and they were all great opportunities, and they really helped me get this position with the Tribune. So definitely just get out to as much as you can. And you guys know me well. I'm a big sports guy, so that was another thing, Jamie, where having to cover government politics and stuff like that was a big change for me as well. But the more you can do, the more you can go to, the better. Just get your name out there as much as possible, regardless. If it's something you really might not have a keen interest in covering, still maybe give it a shot, because you never know. So.
Tell us about Dante Moultrie.
Oh, Dante. He is a 10th grader at NT. I just wrote a story on him. He's starting.
I ask only because I ended up seeing you at the game the other night on Friday. Unfortunately, it was I'm bugging you for stats and rosters and all that. And you tell me about this kid, this sophomore, who's on NT in North Tonawanda. I inevitably saw your story you were telling me about. You wrote on him yesterday. I was at Tops cashing a check or something. So and he's got a great story, just to give just some background on it. So
Dante's a 10th grader on North Tonawanda basketball team. North Tonawanda plays on Thursday at Buffalo State, I believe at 5:15, somewhere around there. Dante is a really interesting story. He, as a 9th grader, he was playing a JV scrimmage, and after the scrimmage, he became sick. He thought he had the flu. Next thing you know, it's a bacterial infection, MRSA, and it led to also a staph infection that caused septic shock. He went into a coma, was down to almost 70 pounds.
Wow.
He was on life support, like I said, and the last 3 people that were on the machine that he was on didn't make it out. So it was he got off the life support. He had to learn how to walk again. He had to learn, basic functions that we all take for granted sometimes.
And when was this? When did all this?
This became when did it? He got sick in November.
Will that be of 2016? Or?
Yes,
Okay.
2016. And then he regained, ability to walk, and he got back on the court in June of 2017. But by that time, that was also the start of Summer League for NT. So some of the players were, getting ready for the high school season by then. So Dante really had to work hard to get back to, running, shooting.
I was going to say 8 months is not a long time
No,
for something like that.
no. And you figure now he's back as a starting point guard. And obviously, you guys all watch basketball. Point guard is probably the most important position on the court.
Yes.
And for him to have that role for a team coming off a sectional championship, it really just speaks volumes to his comeback story.
That's a great
insane.
story. That's a great, and I brought it up. I know it has nothing to do with NU, but it has something to do with the community. It was a terrific story. He played a big role in his team's win the other night. They're going to the semifinals. Let's go. Let's get some quick questions in. Starting with first, your and my team, the Cleveland Cavaliers. What have they done? Are they now a lock for the NBA Finals?
I mean, obviously, I believe they'll make it, but the Celtics are going to give them a tough run. Celtics play tremendous defense. They struggle offensively. I think they got a lot younger, obviously. Old guys like D. Rose and D. Wade were not able to cover certain guys, and they were just getting easy layups. Granted, our defense isn't the best still, but it's nice to see them get younger,
Quicker,
Reset.
more
yeah,
consistent.
and I really like Clarkson. I think he's a good six-man scorer off the bench.
I like that he's wearing 22.
That's
Nance.
Nance is wearing 22.
For
I'm
his
trying my
dad.
best.
Yeah.
No, it's.
Wake up, James.
I'm trying my
Who
best.
who would scare you the most in a first round matchup? Miami, Philadelphia, or Milwaukee? You think?
That's a good one. Philly has a lot of energy as a young team.
Mm-hmm.
I think they would pose a big threat. I don't know if they could win in a 7-game series against
I don't know
the
if they
Cavs.
could win. Yeah.
They'd definitely be the toughest matchup, though. I think they have more weapons.
It's
They have more
it'd be
people to stop.
I think it'd be a matter of Philly and Milwaukee. It's Embiid would be able to play because they take the days off in between the games. He'd be able to play every game if
Yeah.
Ben Simmons was healthy. But then Milwaukee, obviously, you have Giannis.
Yeah.
It's really pick your poison.
That would be my next. I would say they probably pose the biggest threat to in a first round matchup.
Right. Yeah.
Giannis plays decent. He plays pretty well against the Cavs.
He's
and-
not scared of anyone.
Right.
I guess it boils down to I think LeBron James could beat Giannis in a matchup in a 7-game series.
Speaking of NBA basketball,
No.
let me ask you a question that everyone in sports journalism has. Doesn't matter if you cover golf, if you cover basketball, or if you cover curling. MJ or LeBron?
I hate answering this question just because they are completely different players. I mean, you look at LeBron and he can drive to the hole on anybody. Literally anybody.
Unstoppable.
Yeah, he's unstoppable. Where MJ during his time was just the most unstoppable force in basketball. So I think it's a time thing, and I believe I'm going to get a lot of backlash for this one, but I do think LeBron is, slowly but
Right.
surely
Right.
near the top of the mountain.
My thing with this argument is I enjoy discussing it, but my feeling is whoever you think is the best player right now, I feel like a lot of people are just going to be entrenched in that belief. Whether you're an older person and you say, I saw Michael Jordan play, he's no doubt the best player, or if right now I think a lot of people want to be like, I was watching the best player of all time in his prime, and I think people, whatever their belief is, I really don't think there's a lot that can be done anymore to shift those beliefs.
And I think the most annoying part is when people bring up the finals record.
Yeah, that's
is.
the worst.
So yeah, Michael didn't lose the finals, but how many times did
How many times did he get eliminated
in the first round?
In the first round,
How many times has
exactly.
LeBron gotten eliminated
Michael
in the first
Jordan,
round?
Right.
Michael
Never.
Jordan didn't make it past the first round without Scottie Pippen. Is that correct?
I think that's correct.
yeah, I
I
think
don't think he
But
made it past the
even
first
that
round without
fact,
Scottie Pippen.
like how many finals did LeBron make without going to Miami, and like he didn't have who?
I think the
Drew
most impressive
Gooden's,
thing was
Bruno
that
Well, he
Sagauskas?
went the year before. Yeah, I
Thanks,
mean,
no.
there was the 07 finals is without a doubt one of the most impressive. Just put the team on my back. I'm taking you to the finals
That's what
by
I mean.
LeBron.
Jordan never did that.
That's
yeah.
kind of what I'm saying. A really young LeBron. They got swept by the Spurs, but I mean, to even
Still
get there
against
was
Spurs. That's one of the-
insanity.
that's
Yeah,
one
that
of
was
the
like
best
one of the
organizations
prime
ever.
Spurs
That was an incredible Spurs
runs.
team,
Oh
too,
yeah,
so.
yeah.
And it's that's an incredible organization year in and year out. They're a team that's been there a long time and a lot of times. So
I remember that '07 finals. I saw a video on Facebook a couple weeks ago, and it was the starting introductions for the '07 finals, and they got to the Cavs, and it was just like, welcome to the court, Drew Gooden, and I'm just like, wow, this team really made the finals. It's like unbelievable.
Okay, and now some baseball. You're obviously a big baseball guy too. We want you to give a way too early World Series prediction.
Don't you dare say the Indians.
say it.
Follow your heart if you must.
Obviously, I want the Indians to get back there. The Yankees made some tremendous moves. I still think they lack pitching a little bit. That lineup is going to be impressive.
Mm-hmm.
You still got to give the edge to the Astros right now.
Right, I
Just
would
because
too.
they're coming off the World Series win, and they added pieces like Garrett Cole and whatnot. So right now, I'd probably say Rays and Pirates. No, I'm kidding.
Oh my!
As Ryan sits in the back room, a fan of both teams.
Yeah, I know. Ryan's
No,
like, yes.
I would say the Astros. Man, this is tough.
NL's
That's why it's way too early.
Yeah.
That's why it's real. Yeah.
The Cubs. Let's say the Cubs. Actually, no. Astros Dodgers rematch.
Okay.
Ooh.
Okay.
Alrighty, Dave. Thank you for letting us interview you. Do you want to join us for some segments?
Sure, if you want to.
Be sure to listen to episode 3 of the Backpage Podcast, featuring Niagara University President, Father James J. Meyer.
Alrighty, let's start with I'll Tell You What. Who would like to start?
I will. So this is stemming off of a conversation that we had earlier, and I'll tell you what, I believe the Buffalo Bills should start Nathan Peterman at quarterback next season.
Nope, I don't agree with that whatsoever.
James just gave me a death stare. So, but I'm not sure if it's because he disagrees or because I stole his.
You stole mine.
That's why I wanted to jump in there and go first.
Any thoughts on Baker Mayfield to the Bills?
This is
Yes.
this is what I just did.
Yes.
This is what I just did. Okay, so Jamie, I'm gonna go along with you, and because you have,
Thank you.
You have
You wanna
you have
start
no
Nathan.
fandom in this. You have no fandom in this.
I have had to live around, be entrenched with Bills fans my whole life. I have
Sorry.
so much. I have as many thoughts on this as anyone, just because of what I have to deal with, just arguing back and
But
forth
you're not
with
a fan,
Buffalo
so
fans.
you're not
If
blindly
anything, that gives me
optimistic.
more perspective. If I'm not a fan, I can be more
I
objective.
agree, and I say that you start Nathan Peterman, and here's my. I'll tell you
Oh
what. You
my.
draft high and you start Peterman.
No, you
And so I
draft
think
high and
some
start Tyrod.
that-
You start Tyrod, the
If they're
proven
both-
quarterback.
if they're-
I don't want 5 picks Peterman
Look,
going out
if
there
they're both-
when I have Tyrod, when I know what I get with
If
Tyrod.
they're both bad, start the one that doesn't cost you any money.
That's what I mean. Both the Peterman and Mayfield are not going to cut. Who else has got? And I'll tell you what.
I'll tell you what.
Just move on.
You're right, move on. I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what, the Timberwolves are going to flounder because Jimmy Butler tore his meniscus. They lose their killer threat, their clutch scorer, their leading scorer, and it's all gone.
So your hot take is that a team will be worse because their best player went down.
Well, they have Karl Anthony Towns.
Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, listen, they have Karl Anthony Towns, Jeff Teague. They got Andrew Wiggins. Like, they've got a good enough roster, but I feel like Jimmy Butler is that guy that people really have to worry about when it comes down to, like, squeaky bum time.
Gotcha.
Jamal Crawford going to step up now.
Jake
He
crossover.
might be my favorite player to watch of all time.
Can they rename the Sixth Man of the Year award the Jamal Crawford award?
I enjoy watching JR more than Jamal. I
That'd be
think.
awesome.
Nothing makes me laugh more than JR just chucking up the worst shot I've ever seen and then it going in. I love it.
That's my favorite.
Now for my I'll Tell You What. Today I'd argue, since it's the NHL trade deadline, I'll tell you what for that. I'm going to say the LA Kings, despite making a sneaky move, stealing Tobias Reeder from the Arizona Coyotes, and also trading for Dion Phaneuf, I don't think they'll make the playoffs, not even in a wild card.
That is a hot take. All right, Dave, you're
Wow.
up.
I'll tell you what. I believe, and this was actually going to be my question to you guys too. So I believe college athletes should be paid.
You're gonna. Wow, that's a good question. Yeah.
I wholeheartedly believe that they should be paid, and I know you guys got another segment coming up of where I'm supposed to ask you a question.
Right. Well, so we'll just do that right now. So this is a new segment we're gonna call "You Ask Us," and the guest is just gonna ask us, the hosts, a question. So your question, what is it that deals with the NCAA?
I'll let you guys go, and then I'll tell you how I feel about it. Do you guys feel college athletes should be paid?
I believe that I think it should be sport specific. I don't believe that every college athlete necessarily, because I think what it comes down to, a lot of people's arguments is the revenue that these teams generate. And I believe in football and basketball primarily is where the most revenue is generated for a university. So I believe in those cases, I believe that the players do deserve extra compensation. And some people will say, well, their scholarship and education is compensation. But I think it's more than that. They should be allowed to be bought a random meal by someone from the university. They should be allowed to have sponsorships, wear certain sneakers from these companies if they want. But then, of course, that brings in all these questions about agents and would they heavily influence where they go to school. But that already seems to be happening. So just why not make it legal and let them get paid? That's my take.
Well, what's the difference between an agent influencing where you go to school and your family? And both have your best interest. The agent wants the most money, so he's going to fight for you the most.
Well, that's the thing.
Next
Does
to
he have your
family.
best interest, or is he just thinking about money?
Why wouldn't he?
Well, say what if some smaller school decided to just break the bank for this one guy where maybe he'd get a better experience taking a little less money with a better coach, better program? I mean, and then some agents are just going to be about money, in my belief.
Well, it all depends. I mean, it all depends too, because the agent you might have some agents who say there's $1,000 difference, which isn't a lot at this bigger school. They're paying you less, so you could have something like that, and then that could lead to more, which could be in itself a better experience, like more money, more exposure, more revenue for yourself and your brand, and I think it all depends. I think it'll differ with each case too.
I totally agree on different with each case. Like, agency in college is a very interesting thing in itself. But you figure, my take on it is college athletes, they get different amenities. Certain teams, depending on how big your school is too. Like for Niagara University, our basketball team does get flights periodically, and so they'll travel via flight compared to other teams who do not. I always believe that maybe they should get revenue, whether it be if their name is sold, so it's like almost a branding. I believe that should get some revenue for themselves. But I also make the take that, like, people do get scholarship, and if you took a percentage of the scholarship and took that out and gave that to personal money outside of school, that'd also be another solution.
My take on it is that I feel like this NCAA probe that's going on right now is going to be like the tipping point, because to quote Lonzo Ball, I can't believe I'm actually going to quote him right now, but
Stay
he
in
said,
your lane.
Might just me.
he said everybody knows everybody's getting paid. Might as well make it legal. So
I mean, that's the question then. So what Arizona did, is that legal now, or should it be legal? Should it be okay to do?
As of right now, technically it's not illegal, but I feel like this probe is going to see that it's not just Arizona that gave out, thousands and thousands of dollars for high school athletes to come to their college, and it's going to be like, what's the point of punishing all of these top schools? It'll make us look really bad, so we might as well just make it legal.
Well, then what are the logistics behind executing this plan? Are you going to go to the school and essentially audit them, in which you say, tell us about your revenue, what is your revenue, here's the percentage that we want you to give to each athlete in terms. But then do you have a situation where Matt Scott and Khalil Dukes are making just as much as the 12th guy on the bench? Or do you have a situation where you spread it out by talent or usage or incentives? Or
I think like anything, is just be talent based, right?
That's what I think, and honestly,
well, but then go ahead. I'll let her.
I think the payments should be spread out by how legit a team is. So D1 schools are going to get more, if anything, than a D2 school or a D3
Well, they get more scholarship money
so,
anyway,
like,
too.
say you get recruited by Alabama to play football, you're going to make more money than a kid that goes to Grambling State. I don't know, just like a random, like, lower school. Like, you get my drift? So, like, for basketball, football, I agree with Jamie. The money-making sports, they by, like, the superiority. Is that a word?
The superiority.
Yeah. I was like,
by,
where's he
by
going?
the team. So if you play for Alabama, you're going to get the most money. If you play for Kansas basketball, you're going to get more money. So the better the team, the more the money. And in turn, if you're an athlete and you can't make, a D1 team, if you go to a JUCO, you want to work your way up to get to a D1, and that's how you'll get paid.
Right.
All right,
Good question.
Yeah, that definitely was a good
was a
question.
good
The first ever You Ask Us was a resounding success.
Came in hot.
Now let's move to our last segment of the episode, picks. First, I'd like to reference the all-time pick standings. Father Mar went 3-1 last episode.
He did well.
Nice week. Nice day.
He had fun, too.
You know who also did well? Jamie, because he's now 8-2.
Yeah,
Thank
James
you.
has been doing well, too.
Thank you.
I have moved into second place at 7-3. James has moved down to third, and Ryan is still at 500.
I'm at
so
fourth.
he's at.
Oh, no, well, it
last.
depends if we're counting Father Mar. He's got the
No,
we
wait,
can do an
percentage,
all-time
right?
guest.
Yeah, that's what we
standings
should
if
do.
you want,
Yeah, so Father Mar's first place. Dave,
Yeah.
you have to beat Father Mar, who went 3-1, which is kind of unfair because
Yeah,
we're
we're
only
only doing
picking
three
three
games.
games. So first, let's pick the 76ers at the Cavs on Thursday night,
Cavs.
All right.
says the Cavs fan.
Yeah, I think we picked a Cavs game on Friday, and I think the problem that we all didn't think of was the Cavs were playing their third game in 4 days, and we all just went with the Cavs, and then it was a
Yeah.
Sunday afternoon game, and I think they kind of
Yeah.
just mailed it in, well, except for LeBron, who did he have a triple-double? It was close.
Came close.
Probably.
I know he called out the refs
But-
for like guard or helping
Yeah,
shooters
Yeah,
more than drivers.
he was really unhappy, but this time I checked, they'll be coming off of a day off. 76ers will too, so it should be fun because Embiid should be playing, but I'm going to go with the Cavs once again. Don't let me down.
Well, the Cavs let me down when I picked them for Friday's episode. So I'm going to go with the 76ers. I'm going to go with the process. Here's a little fun fact. As of recording, the 76ers have won 7 in a row, which means they haven't lost since the Philadelphia Eagles won the Super Bowl.
The funny thing about Franklin's pick is that on Friday, he was could be
Yeah, I
quoted saying,
said.
"Never pick against
I
a
was.
LeBron James team."
Well,
and
you
yet
let me
here
down.
he is.
And I'm
Didn't you
officially...
pick Team Steph, too?
Yeah, and you
That's
picked Team
not-
Steph in the All-Star game.
Yeah,
I mean,
so, and I came up with that
you're all
theory
over the map
night
here.
before Friday. So that was, some things float, some things sink.
There's no way we pick 2 Cavs games and they end up losing both of them. So I'll take the Cavs. Pure odds point of view, I think the Cavs will take them in Cleveland.
For me, last night the streak actually was broken in Philadelphia by Washington.
Oops.
So in the month of February, Philadelphia is 8-2, and they are a really hot team right now. They're only a game back, I believe, of Cleveland at this point. I think Cleveland, when you put them up against the wall, it's just one of those teams that they're going to fight. They're going to prove you wrong. So I think I'm winning Cavs.
So I guess I'm lone wolfing it here. All right. Next, we'll pick a hockey game. So the Las Vegas Golden Knights are traveling to the Staples Center to take on the Los Angeles Kings on Monday. Dave, who you got?
So I am slowly but surely getting on the Golden Knights train. I went to Vegas. I went to their draft party back in June, and it was time of my life. So I'm going to go Knights.
Well, as usual, my hockey pick will be mostly random and with no real reason
Got Knights versus Kings
behind it. Yeah, but aren't
Medieval
the Knights like 15-1-1 or something against West Coast teams?
Oh, they've been
I
terrific.
think
this
I've
year.
seen it. I've seen stuff on their Twitter, so I'm gonna go with the Vegas Knights.
As am I. I'm going to go with the Vegas Knights. William Karlsson is tied for second in the league with 33 goals. The Columbus Blue Jackets must feel like garbage, giving him up for expansion.
I will also take the Golden Knights. They're too good. They're playing great hockey with a bunch of guys who weren't deemed good enough for their teams. So good for them.
I got to say, since Kings made a trade for Reeder, and since then their chemistry has been kind of whacked. So they've lost both games, outscored 6-3. And Vegas is at home. They've beat the Kings twice this year, I believe. I think they're going to win again.
Okay.
No love for the Kings.
No,
No
we are
love for the
clean
Kings.
sweep for the Knights. And last but not least, we are picking one college basketball game, not NU, but Duke University is traveling to Virginia Tech on Monday night to play the Hokies. What you got?
So I had the not so privileged ability to watch the Syracuse Duke
Oh
game
my
on
gosh.
Saturday. And Duke, I gotta say, really didn't impress me. But obviously, Syracuse didn't impress me either. I'm gonna go Virginia Tech.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I was watching that game. I saw you had a tweet where it was like someone bashing their head against the wall, and it was like, do this instead of watching the Duke Cuse game. It's the same thing.
Yep.
And you're right. Duke didn't necessarily impress me, but I think Marvin Bagley was just returning. It was his first game back, I think, off of injury, and he was still really good. I think he'll only get better as he returns to form. And again, I think it's like last week with Duke, Texas Tech, we were picking. It's about the program for me, so I'm going with Duke.
I'm going to echo Jamie. I am now 3 for 3 in picking the better college basketball program, so I'm picking Duke.
I'll also say the same thing Father Mar said about Bill Self. Don't bet against the Bill Self team. I'll say the same thing about Coach K. I'll take Duke.
Don't bet against a Bill Self team unless it's the Elite Eight. Then maybe
Absolutely.
you should.
If you're in
it
the,
hurts me to say, but then
pre-tournament,
maybe.
pre-tournament, yeah.
Yeah, right. 14 straight.
I'm only choosing Duke for the fact that they're nationally ranked. That's literally the only reason.
Nice.
Alrighty. Maybe we should pick better games because we're majority on
Yeah,
one
who's
game.
picking these things?
I don't know.
Who's
Yeah,
picking
who's the
these
guy
things?
that
Anyway-
decides what games?
Anyway,
we got?
Dave, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, David Yarger. You can follow him on Twitter at Yagabomb. That's YAGA Bomb24. Yagabomb24. One of the best up-and-coming editors in Western New York. David, thank you for taking the time.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
If you haven't already, follow our social media accounts at Backpage Podcast, at Wire Sports, and also follow our guest Twitter account at Yegabomb24.
We're going to end the show on this poll, which is, what do you think is the most impactful, exciting, what would you guys say? Newsworthy trade deadline. Was the most newsworthy trade deadline out of the four major sports in America? We got NHL, NBA, MLB, NFL. Out of those four, what is the most exciting? What's the most impactful for seasons going forward? That's going to do it for this week's episode of the Backpage Podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the Backpage Podcast on YouTube and SoundCloud. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you on Friday.